The first time I saw him, he was bleeding, not dramatically, just a thin line of crimson trickling from his knuckles as he struggled. His left leg, from knee to ankle, was encased in a sleek black prosthetic that caught the harsh fluorescent lights of the station. I stood frozen, my own suitcase forgotten at my feet, watching this stranger fight a battle against gravity and pride. He didn't ask for help. He didn't even look around. He just kept trying, his jaw set in determination, his military uniform rumpled from travel. I should have walked away. I should have minded my business like every other commuter rushing past him. But something in the set of his shoulders, something in the way he refused to surrender to something as simple as a zipper, made me move forward. "Hey," I said, my voice softer than I intended. "Need a hand?" He looked up then, and the world shifted. His eyes were the color of storm clouds over the ocean gray and deep and infinite. For 3 seconds, that felt like 3 hours, we just stared at each other. Then he smiled, small and tired and genuine, and said, "Only if you don't make a big deal about it." That was how I met Sergeant Ethan Cross on a freezing December night at Union Station. Both of us trying to catch the last train home for Christmas. I had no idea that helping him with a stuck zipper would unravel everything I thought I knew about myself. I had no idea that this man with tired eyes and a warrior's posture would become the axis around which my entire world would spin. I had no idea that love could feel like coming home and falling off a cliff at the exact same time. My name is Adrian Mitchell. Before that night, my life was painted in comfortable shades of predictable. At 24, I worked as a junior architect at a firm in Philadelphia. Lived in a shoebox apartment with exposed brick that I pretended was charming. And dated occasionally always women, always brief, always ending with the same polite distance. My parents thought I was focused on my career. My friends thought I was picky. I thought I was just waiting for something to feel right. The train was nearly empty when we boarded. Most people had traveled earlier in the week, smart enough to avoid the last-minute rush. Ethan moved with practiced efficiency, despite his prosthetic. I noticed he never once looked at it or acknowledged its presence. He chose a window seat in the middle of the car, and without overthinking it, I sat across from him. "Adrian," I said, extending my hand. He shook it firmly. "Ethan, thanks for the assist back there." His palm was calloused and warm, and he held the handshake a fraction longer than necessary. Or maybe I imagined that we started talking the way strangers do when they're trapped together for 5 hours. Superficial at first, trading harmless details. He was 26 from a small town in upstate New York called Millbrook. Heading home after 18 months deployed overseas, he'd lost part of his leg to an IED 7 months ago, spent 4 months in rehab, and was being medically discharged. He said it all matter-of-factly like he was reciting a grocery list. But his fingers tightened on the armrest when he mentioned the discharge. I told him about my job, my apartment, my cat named Fibonacci, because I was terrible at naming things. He laughed at that, a real laugh that crinkled the corners of his eyes. The train lurched forward, and outside the window, Philadelphia's lights began to blur into darkness. Ethan pulled out a battered paperback, The Count of Monte Cristo, and I pulled out my sketch pad, intending to work on some preliminary designs for a community center project. But I couldn't concentrate. I kept glancing up, watching the way lamplight from outside moved across his face, the way he mouthed words silently as he read, the way his thumb traced the edge of each page before turning it. There was something magnetic about him, something that made the air feel thicker, charged with possibility. "You're staring?" he said, without looking up from his book, a slight smile playing at his lips. Heat flooded my face. "Sorry, occupational hazard." "I analyze structures. Is that what you're doing?" Analyzing my structure. Now he did look up, and his eyes held a glint of amusement mixed with something else I couldn't name. "I'm just trying to figure out how someone stays so calm after everything you've been through," I said honestly. The amusement faded, replaced by something raw and unguarded. "Who says I'm calm? Maybe I'm just good at pretending." We talked for 3 hours straight after that. Real talking, the kind that peels back layers and reveals the tender parts underneath. He told me about his unit, about the brothers he'd lost, about waking up in a German hospital and learning his leg was gone. He told me about the nightmares that still came most nights, about the phantom pain that made him reach for a limb that wasn't there, about the crushing weight of survivor's guilt. I told him about the pressure of being the perfect son, about my father's expectations for my career, about the loneliness that followed me even in crowded rooms. I told him things I'd never said out loud. At some point, the conversation shifted. We talked about small things: favorite movies, worst jobs, childhood pets. He'd had a golden retriever named Sergeant Pepper. I'd had a goldfish that lived for 6 years against all odds. He loved thunderstorms. I loved the ocean at dawn. He quoted Hemingway. I quoted Wilde. And somewhere in those hours, sitting across from each other, while the world rushed by in darkness, something fundamental changed. The air between us grew warm and electric, charged with a tension I'd never experienced before. Every time our eyes met, it felt like touching a live wire. "You're easy to talk to," Ethan said softly, as the train slowed for a stop. "Dangerous quality. Dangerous how?" I asked, my heart beating faster. He studied me for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Makes a person want to say things they probably shouldn't. Before I could ask what he meant, the conductor announced we'd reached Millbrook. Ethan gathered his things. His movements suddenly rushed, almost anxious. I helped him with his duffel bag again, and as I handed it to him, our fingers brushed. The contact lasted maybe 2 seconds, but I felt it everywhere, a spark that raced up my arm and straight to my chest. "This is me," he said, standing in the aisle. The train doors hissed open, letting in cold December air. He looked at me, and I saw something flicker across his face. Regret, maybe, or longing, or both. "It was good meeting you, Adrian." "Really good," I heard myself say. Could I? I fumbled for my phone, suddenly desperate not to let this end. "Can I get your number? In case you ever need an architect. Or just want to talk." His smile was slow and genuine and lit up his entire face. "Yeah, I'd like that." We exchanged numbers, while other passengers moved past us, grumbling about the delay. Then Ethan slung his duffel over his shoulder, gave me one last look that made my stomach flip, and stepped off the train. I watched through the window as he walked across the platform, his gait slightly uneven but confident. Right before he disappeared into the station, he turned back and raised his hand in a wave. I waved back, feeling something unfamiliar and terrifying bloom in my chest. The train pulled away, carrying me toward my own destination. But I couldn't stop thinking about storm gray eyes and a smile that felt like sunrise. I didn't text him right away. For 3 days, I stared at his contact information, composing and deleting messages. "Hey, it's Adrian," from the train seemed too casual. "I can't stop thinking about you" seemed too intense. "I think meeting you might have changed my entire life" seemed insane. So I waited, spending Christmas with my family in a fog of distraction. Barely present for traditions I'd participated in for 24 years. My mother noticed. "You seem distant, honey." "Everything okay?" I smiled and lied and helped her with dishes, all while replaying every moment of that train ride. On December 27th, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Ethan, from the train. Hope your Christmas was good." Mine was "Weird family treats me like I might break. Anyway, thought about what you said about being easy to talk to. Still true? Because I could use someone easy to talk to right now." I read it 5 times, my pulse racing. Then I called him. He answered on the second ring. "Adrian." Just my name, but the way he said it, warm and surprised and pleased, made something in my chest expand. "Hey, yeah, still true. Talk to me." We talked for 2 hours that night, then 3 hours the next day, then every day after that. Phone calls became video calls. He'd show me around his childhood home, the barn his father had converted into a workshop, the creek behind the property where he'd learned to fish, the room he'd grown up in that still had posters of bands from the early 2000s. I'd show him my apartment, my sketches, the view from my fire escape. We talked about everything and nothing. He told me about physical therapy, about learning to walk again, about the frustration of depending on others. I told him about the community center project, about office politics, about my growing certainty that architecture wasn't my passion. "What is your passion?" he asked one night in early January. We'd been on video chat for 4 hours, both of us lying in our respective beds, phones propped on pillows. It was 2 in the morning. that liminal space where defenses drop and truth flows easier. Honestly, I don't know. I've spent so long doing what I was supposed to do. I never stopped to ask what I wanted. Ethan's expression softened. That's the saddest thing I've heard all day. What about you? What do you want? He was quiet for a long moment, his eyes searching mine through the screen. Right now? I want to see you again. In person, I mean, not just through a phone. My heart stopped, then started again double time. Yeah. His voice was rough, intimate. Is that weird? We barely know each other. Talk every day for hours. I know you hate cilantro and love terrible action movies and can't sleep without a fan running. I know you read the last page of books first and drink coffee black because you're a masochist. I know when you're stressed, you clean, and when you're sad, you hide it behind jokes. I swallowed hard. I know you think you're broken, but you're the strongest person I've ever met. I know you're scared of letting people see you struggle. I know you feel things deeply even when you pretend not to. So no, Ethan, it's not weird. The silence that followed was heavy with everything we weren't saying. Then Ethan spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. Come visit me. Next weekend. There's a spare room here, and my family would love to meet you, and I need to know if this feels the same in person. If what feels the same? I asked, even though I knew. Even though I felt it to this magnetic pull, this connection that defied logic. This, he said simply, USEA. I booked a train ticket before we hung up. The week before my visit felt like the longest of my life. Work dragged. Sleep became elusive. I found myself checking my phone constantly, waiting for his texts, counting down hours. My best friend Marcus noticed during our weekly lunch. You're acting weird, different. Are you seeing someone? I hesitated, then said carefully, I met someone. It's new, complicated. What's her name? His name is Ethan. The words came out before I could stop them. Marcus's grin faltered for half a second, then returned gentler. Okay, tell me about him. So I did. I told Marcus everything's a train, the conversations, the feeling of falling into something unknown and terrifying and wonderful. Marcus listened without judgment, and when I finished, he just nodded. Sounds like you've got it bad. I think I might, I admitted. Does that freak you out? That you're into a guy? Nah. That you're into a guy you've spent exactly 5 hours with in person, and now you're visiting his family? Yeah, little bit. Paused. But also, I've never seen you like this. You're usually so controlled, so careful. This is good, Adrian. Scary, but good. Friday arrived. I took the train north, the same route as before, but this time filled with nervous energy instead of holiday fatigue. Ethan had offered to pick me up from the station. When the train pulled in, I saw him immediately standing on the platform in jeans and a thick coat. Hands in pockets, breath fogging in the January cold. Our eyes met through the window and he smiled, and everything in me went quiet and loud at the same time. I grabbed my bag and practically ran off the train. We stood facing each other for a moment, suddenly awkward. Then Ethan laughed and pulled me into a hug. It was like every piece of me that had been scattered suddenly clicked into place. He was solid and warm and real, and he smelled like pine and winter air. I wrapped my arms around him, probably holding on too tight, and felt him do the same. Hey, he murmured against my shoulder. Hey, I managed. When we pulled apart, his hands lingered on my arms, and his eyes held mine with an intensity that made my breath catch. Come on, he said softly. Let's get you home. Ethan's family home was a rambling farmhouse, painted butter yellow. With a wraparound porch and smoke curling from a stone chimney, his mother, Sarah, was waiting at the door, a small woman with Ethan's eyes and a warm smile that immediately put me at ease. You must be Adrian. Ethan hasn't stopped talking about you. She pulled me into a hug before I could respond. Mom, Ethan groaned, his ears turning red. His father, Michael, appeared behind her, extending a calloused hand. Welcome, son. Any friend of Ethan's is family here. The house was everything mine, wasn't lived in and comfortable, with mismatched furniture and family photos covering every surface. Sarah had prepared enough food for an army and over dinner. I learned that Ethan had an older sister, Claire, who was a teacher in Boston, and that Michael had served in Vietnam, which partly explained why Ethan had enlisted. The conversation flowed easily, warmth and laughter filling spaces that must have felt empty during Ethan's deployment. I watched him with his family, saw the affection in every interaction. The way they teased and supported and loved each other openly after dinner. Ethan showed me to the guest room, a cozy space with a quilted bed and window overlooking the property. "I'm right next door if you need anything," he said, lingering in the doorway. The air between us felt charged, expectant. "Thank you for inviting me," I said. "Thank you for coming." He stepped closer, and my heart hammered. Adrian, whatever he was going to say was interrupted by his mother calling from downstairs. He closed his eyes briefly, frustrated. "Rain check." "Yeah, rain check." That night, I lay awake in the unfamiliar room, hyper-aware that Ethan was just beyond the wall. Around midnight, I heard footsteps in the hallway, then a soft knock. I opened the door to find Ethan in sweatpants and a t-shirt, looking uncertain. "Couldn't sleep," he admitted. "Nightmare." He nodded. "You want to come in?" I stepped aside, and he entered, settling into the armchair by the window. We talked in whispers for hours about his nightmares, about my fears, about the strange intimacy of being vulnerable at 3 a.m. At some point, he moved from the chair to sit beside me on the bed, our shoulders touching. Neither of us acknowledged it, but neither of us moved away. "Can I tell you something?" he asked, as dawn began to lighten the sky. "Anything. I've known I was gay since I was 15. Told my family when I was 17, and they were amazing about it. But in the military, I couldn't. It's different now, policy-wise. But the culture is still complicated. So I just didn't. For 8 years, I just didn't let myself feel anything for anyone." He turned to look at me, his eyes exhausted and honest. "Then I met you on a train, and I felt everything all at once." My breath caught. His confession hung in the air between us, beautiful and terrifying. "Ethan, you don't have to say anything," he said quickly. "I just needed you to know. I need you to understand why this weekend matters to me." "Why you matter to me?" I reached for his hand, threading our fingers together. His grip tightened immediately. "I'm figuring things out," I said carefully. "About myself. About what I want. And I'm pretty sure what I want is sitting right here." His eyes searched mine. "Pretty sure?" "Okay, completely sure. Absolutely terrified, but completely sure." He smiled, soft and wondering, and lifted our joined hands to his lips, pressing a kiss to my knuckles. The gesture was so tender it made my chest ache. "We'll figure it out together," he promised. We sat there as the sun rose, hands clasped, shoulders touching, balanced on the edge of something that would change everything. Eventually, he stood to go back to his room, but at the door he paused. "Adrian, I'm really glad the universe put us on that train." "Me too," I whispered. After he left, I lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling, my hands still warm from his touch, knowing with absolute certainty that I was falling in love. The weekend unfolded like a dream. Saturday, Ethan took me into town, a postcard perfect. Main street with local shops, and a diner that served the best coffee I'd ever tasted. We walked side by side, close enough that our hands occasionally brushed, sending electricity up my arm each time. People greeted Ethan warmly, and he introduced me simply as my friend Adrian. But the way he said it, the way he looked at me when he said it, made it feel like so much more. At the bookstore, we browsed for an hour, trading. He bought me a collection of poems by Ocean Vuong. I bought him the latest Lee Child thriller, Poetry. He asked, surprised, as we left the shop. "You strike me as more of a practical nonfiction guy. I'm full of surprises." I bumped his shoulder with mine. "Besides, someone once told me that architects and poets have something in common. We both try to build something beautiful out of nothing." He stopped walking, turning to face me fully. "Who told you that?" "You did? Last week on the phone, you were half asleep and rambling." His expression softened into something that made my knees weak. "I say true things when I'm half asleep, I've noticed." That afternoon, he took me to the creek he'd mentioned, now frozen over and dusted with snow. We sat on the bank, bundled in coats, our breath fogging between us. "I used to come here to think," Ethan said. When things got tough, when I needed to figure stuff out, what would you think about? The future. Who I wanted to be? Whether I'd always feel like I didn't quite fit in my own skin? He picked up a stone, turning it over in his gloved hands. After I lost my leg, I came here first thing when I got home. Sat right here and cried for about 2 hours straight. I didn't know what to say, so I just moved closer, pressing my shoulder against his. He leaned into the contact, but then I realized something. The leg doesn't change who I am. The trauma doesn't erase the good parts. I'm still me, just a different version. A version that's learning to be okay with needing help sometimes. A version that's maybe brave enough to want things I was too scared to want before. What do you want? I asked quietly. He turned to look at me, and the intensity in his gaze stole my breath. You. I want you, Adrian. I want to know everything about you. I want to make you laugh and listen to you ramble about building designs. I want to fall asleep on the phone with you and wake up to your texts. I want to figure out what this is between us and see where it goes. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure he could hear it. I want that too. God, Ethan, I want that so much it scares me. Why does it scare you? Because I've spent my whole life being certain. Certain about my career, certain about my path, certain about who I was supposed to be. And then I met you. Suddenly I'm not certain about anything except that being around you feels more right than anything else ever has. My voice cracked. That's terrifying. He reached over and took off his glove, then mine, so our skin touched when he laced our fingers together. Being terrified together sounds better than being safe alone. We sat like that until the sun started to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Then Ethan stood, pulling me up with him. Come on. Mom's making her famous pot roast, and if we're late, she'll give me grief for a week. We walked back to the house hand in hand, and it felt like the most natural thing in the world. At the door, before we went inside, he squeezed my hand. Thank you, he said. For what? For being brave enough to sit across from a stranger on a train? For answering my texts? For coming here? For wanting me back? I pulled him into a hug, tight and fierce. Always, I whispered against his neck. I felt him shudder slightly, his arms tightening around me. When we pulled apart, his eyes were bright with emotion. Inside, his family pretended not to notice our linked hands or the way we kept gravitating toward each other. Over dinner, Sar told embarrassing childhood stories while Michael showed me photos of Ethan through the years, gap-toothed and grinning, teenage and awkward, uniformed and proud. Looking at those photos, seeing the journey that had shaped him, I fell even harder. Sunday morning arrived too quickly. My train left at noon, and I'd never dreaded leaving a place more. Ethan drove me to the station, and we were both unusually quiet, the weight of goodbye pressing down on us. In the parking lot, he turned off the engine but didn't move. So, he said. So, I echoed. This weekend was everything, I finished. Yeah, everything. He turned to face me fully. I don't want this to end. The talking, the connection, whatever this is we're building. I want to keep building it. I'm 2 hours away by train, I pointed out. We could visit on weekends. I could come to Philadelphia. You could come here. We could make it work if we both want to. I want to, I said immediately. Ethan, I really want to. He smiled, relieved and happy, and reached across to cup my face with his palm. The gesture was so intimate, so tender that I couldn't breathe. Can I? He started, his thumb brushing my cheekbone. Would it be okay if I? Yes, I breathed. Understanding what he was asking, he leaned in slowly, giving me time to pull away. But pulling away was the last thing I wanted. When his lips met mine, soft and questioning, the world narrowed to just that point of contact. It was gentle and brief, and perfect a promise more than a passion. When we separated, I was trembling. Wow, I whispered. He laughed, breathless and giddy. Yeah, wow. We kissed again, longer this time, deeper, his hands sliding into my hair while mine gripped his jacket. When we finally broke apart, both of us were smiling like idiots. I really have to go, I said reluctantly, checking the time. I know, but neither of us moved. Finally, Ethan got out and helped me with my bag. On the platform, He pulled me into one last hug. "Text me when you get home," he murmured. "Text me before then. Text me constantly." He laughed against my shoulder. Deal. The train arrived and I forced myself to board. Through the window, I watched him stand there, hands in pockets, watching me back. As the train began to move, he raised his hand in the same wave he'd given me a month ago. But this time, everything was different. This time, I wasn't a stranger who'd helped with a zipper. I was someone who'd been kissed at a train station by a man who made me believe in fate. The next 2 months were a blur of train rides and phone calls, stolen weekends and constant texting. I went to Millbrook twice more, and Ethan came to Philadelphia 3 times. We fell into an easy rhythm. I had spent cooking together in my tiny kitchen. Days exploring the city or hiking trails near his home, hours tangled together on my couch or his, learning each other's bodies and hearts with equal reverence. Every kiss felt like a revelation. Every conversation went deeper. Every moment together reinforced what I already knew. I was completely, irrevocably in love with him. But loving someone doesn't mean everything is perfect. In late February, reality started creeping in. Ethan was struggling with his medical discharge, the bureaucracy, the loss of identity, the question of what came next. He applied for jobs but kept getting rejected, and each rejection chipped away at his confidence. He started pulling back, missing calls, responding to texts with one-word answers. When I confronted him about it during a visit, he exploded. "I'm a mess, Adrian. I don't have a job. I'm living with my parents at 26. I wake up screaming from nightmares. What exactly do you see in me?" "I see someone who's been through hell and came out still kind, still strong, still fighting," I shot back. "I see someone who makes me laugh and challenges me and makes me want to be better. I see the person I'm in love with, and I don't give a damn about the rest." The words hung in the air. I hadn't meant to say it like that, hadn't meant to confess love in the middle of an argument. Ethan stared at me, his expression unreadable. "You love me?" His voice was barely a whisper. "Of course I love you," I said, frustration bleeding into tenderness. How could I not? He closed the distance between us in 2 strides, kissing me hard and desperate, like he was trying to memorize the feel of it. When we broke apart, he pressed his forehead to mine. "I love you too. God, Adrian, I love you so much it terrifies me. Then let me in. Let me help carry some of this. I don't know how. We'll figure it out. Together, remember? That's what you said." He nodded against me, and I felt wetness on his cheeks. We held each other for a long time, and when we finally separated, something had shifted. A wall had come down, letting me see all of him. Scars and fears and beautiful broken pieces. Things got better after that. Ethan started seeing a therapist who specialized in veterans with PTSD. He got a job at a local outdoor outfitter, working with adaptive equipment for disabled athletes. He was good at it, patient and knowledgeable, and slowly I watched his confidence rebuild. We talked about the future more concretely, where we saw this going, what we both wanted. I admitted that I was thinking about leaving Philadelphia, maybe finding work closer to him. He admitted he'd been researching architecture firms in the area for me. We were building something real, something lasting. In April, on a weekend when Ethan had come to visit me, we took a walk through Fairmount Park. Spring was asserting itself, trees budding green, flowers pushing through soil, the air warm and alive. We'd spent the morning at the art museum, and now we were just wandering, hands linked, no destination in mind. "I have something to tell you," Ethan said as we settled on a bench overlooking the Schuylkill River. His tone was serious, and my stomach clenched. "Okay, I got offered a job in Philadelphia." My heart stopped. "What?" "There's an organization that helps veterans transition to civilian life. They want me to be a peer counselor. It's good money, meaningful work, and it's here, in the city." He was watching me carefully, gauging my reaction. "That's amazing, Ethan. Why do you look nervous?" He took a deep breath. "Because accepting it means moving here, permanently, and I needed to know, wanted to ask." He fumbled in his pocket and pulled out a key. "I wanted to know if maybe you'd want to look for a place together. If that's too fast, I totally understand." But I cut him off with a kiss, laughing against his lips. "Yes, God, yes. I want to live with you and wake up next to you and build a life with you." His answering smile was brighter than the spring sun. He slipped the key into my hand. It was to his current apartment back in Millbrook. Symbolic more than practically, and then he was kissing me again, and I was kissing back. And neither of us cared that we were in a public park in the middle of the afternoon. When we finally came up for air, he rested his forehead against mine. I never thought I'd have this. Someone to build a future with. Someone who sees all of me and stays anyway. "I'm not going anywhere," I promised. "You're stuck with me." "Good," he whispered, "because I'm never letting you go." We spent the rest of the afternoon making plans, neighborhoods we'd explore, furniture we'd need, how we'd combine his terrible action movie collection with my pretentious art films. Everything felt possible, stretched out before us like an open road. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in brilliant colors, I looked at the man beside me, this soldier who'd changed my entire life on a December train, and felt nothing but gratitude. For whatever twist of fate had put us on the same platform, we found an apartment in Maya's second-floor walk-up in Fishtown with big windows and hardwood floors and enough space for both of us. Moving in together was chaos and comedy, whirlwind of unpacking boxes and assembling furniture and discovering incompatibilities we'd never noticed before. Ethan was meticulously organized. I was creatively messy. He liked the thermostat at 6. I liked it at 72. He was a morning person. I was decidedly not. But we learned to compromise, to communicate, to navigate the small conflicts that come with sharing space. The first night in our apartment, surrounded by half-unpacked boxes and mismatched furniture. We ordered pizza and ate it sitting on the floor. "This is really happening," Ethan said, looking around the space that was now ours. "We're really doing this? Having second thoughts?" I teased. He reached over and laced our fingers together. "Not even for a second." "You?" I kissed him softly. "This is the most right thing I've ever done." We made love that night in our new bedroom, slow and tender, mapping each other's bodies like sacred geography. Afterward, tangled together in sheets that smelled like detergent and new beginnings. Ethan whispered, "I love you, Adrian Mitchell." "I love you too, Ethan Cross," I whispered back. And I meant it with every fiber of my being. We fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, secure in what we'd built, and excited for what was coming. In the weeks that followed, we settled into domestic life. Ethan started his new job and came home each day with stories about the veterans he was helping. I got promoted at work and began leading projects instead of just supporting them. We adopted a 3-legged rescue cat, Ethan, named Lucky, who immediately claimed the sunniest spot on the couch as his territory. Our life wasn't perfect. Ethan still had bad days when the phantom pain was unbearable or the nightmares kept him up all night. I still struggled with imposter syndrome and the lingering guilt of disappointing my father's expectations, but we faced those challenges together, supporting each other through the hard moments and celebrating the victories. We built a home not just in the physical space we shared, but in the safety we created for each other, the unconditional acceptance, the deep and abiding love that grew stronger with every passing day in late summer. We took a trip back to Millbrook for Ethan's birthday. His family threw a barbecue, and as I stood on the porch watching Ethan laugh with his father, helping flip burgers despite Michael's protests that he should relax, I was struck by how much had changed. A year ago, I'd been a stranger on a train, helping with a stuck zipper. Now I was part of this family, welcomed and loved, standing in a home that felt like mine too. Sarah appeared beside me, handing me a beer. "He's different with you," she observed. "Lighter. Like he's finally letting himself be happy." "He makes me happy too," I said. "I can tell. You're good for each other." She paused, then added, "I'm glad he found you, Adrian. After everything he went through, he deserves someone who sees him the way you do." My throat tightened with emotion. "Thank you for sharing him with me." "Nice." She squeezed my shoulder. "You're family now. Don't forget that." Later that night, after the party wound down, Ethan and I walked to the creek. It had become our spot, the place we went to talk about important things. We sat on the bank, shoulders touching, watching moonlight dance on the water. "This has been the best year of my life," Ethan said quietly. "Same, I mean it. A year ago, I was lost. broken. Didn't know how to be in the world anymore. And then I met you, and everything changed. He turned to look at me, his eyes reflecting starlight. You gave me a reason to rebuild, Adrian. Not just my life, but myself. You made me believe I could be whole again, even missing pieces. Tears pricked my eyes. You were always whole, Ethan. You just needed to see yourself the way I see, you strong and brave and beautiful and absolutely worth loving. He kissed me then. Soft and lingering, tasting like summer and promise. When we pulled apart, he reached into 1407's pocket and withdrew a small box. My heart stopped. I know we've only been together less than a year, he said, his voice shaking slightly. And maybe this is too fast, and maybe you'll think I'm crazy, but I've never been more certain of anything in my life. He opened the box to reveal 2 simple silver bands. These aren't engagement rings, not yet. Think of them as promise rings, a promise that I want forever with you, however that looks. A promise that I'm all in, completely committed to this, to us. I was crying now, not caring that tears were streaming down my face. Ethan, you don't have to say yes right now. You can think about it. But I wanted you to know that when I picture my future, you're in every single moment. And I wanted to give you something tangible to hold on to on days when maybe you doubt that. I took the box with trembling hands, looking at the rings that represented everything we'd built and everything we could still become. Yes, I said, my voice thick with emotion. I don't need to think about it. Yes. I want forever with you. Yes, to every promise you're making. Yes to all of it. His smile could have lit the entire night sky. He took one of the rings and slid it onto my finger, and I did the same for him. Then we were kissing again, laughing and crying and holding each other like we could merge into one person. I love you, he breathed against my lips. I love you so much. I love you too. Forever. We stayed by the creek until dawn, talking about the future we'd build together, the possibilities stretching before us like an endless horizon. And as the sun rose, painting everything gold, I knew with absolute certainty that getting on that train last December was the best decision I'd ever made. The months that followed were filled with the kind of joy I didn't know existed. We started planning for real, not just promise rings, but actual engagement, actual marriage. We talked about timelines and what kind of wedding we wanted, small and intimate, surrounded by people who truly mattered. We talked about maybe buying a house someday, about traveling, about all the adventures we'd have together. Every day felt like a gift, even the ordinary ones. Especially the ordinary ones, grocery shopping together, cooking dinner, falling asleep watching TV, waking up tangled together in the morning. In October, I surprised Ethan with a weekend trip to New York City. We explored the High Line, saw a Broadway show, ate too much pizza, and got lost in bookstores. On our last evening, as we stood on the Brooklyn Bridge at sunset, I pulled him close. Thank you, I said. For what? For being on that train? For letting me help you? For texting me when you could have just let it end? For choosing me every day since? He cupped my face in his hands, his thumb brushing my cheekbone in that gesture that always made me melt. Adrian, I didn't choose you. My heart chose you before my brain even caught up. From that first moment you offered to help, some part of me knew you'd be important. That's very romantic, I teased, but my voice was unsteady. You make me romantic. You make me brave. You make me want to be the best version of myself. He kissed me softly, thoroughly, right there on the bridge with tourists and locals flowing around us. I can't wait to marry you. Is that a proposal? I asked, laughing. Not yet. When I propose, you'll know. It'll be memorable. Everything with you is memorable, I said honestly. We stood there as the sun set, New York City glowing around us, and I thought about how far we'd come. How a chance meeting had turned into the greatest love story of my life. Ethan proposed on the anniversary of the day we met, December 20th, exactly 1 year later. He'd planned everything meticulously, which I only discovered later. He convinced me we were just taking the train to visit his parents for Christmas. We boarded at the same time we had a year ago, and he led me to the exact same seats him at the window, me across from him. Feeling nostalgic? I asked, settling in. Something like that, he said, with a mysterious smile. As the train pulled away from the station, he reached into his bag and pulled out a battered paperback, The Count of Monte Cristo. The same edition he'd been reading when we met. I never finished this, he said. Got distracted by a beautiful man who couldn't stop staring at my structure. I laughed, remembering. I was analyzing, thank you very much. Sure you were. He opened the book, and tucked inside was a letter. He handed it to me. Read this. With shaking hands, I unfolded the paper. It was filled with his neat handwriting. Adrian, a year ago, I got on this train, broken and lost, certain that the best parts of my life were behind me. And then a stranger offered to help with my zipper, and everything changed. You became my best friend, my partner, my home. You showed me that being broken doesn't mean being less, that asking for help is strength, that love can rebuild what trauma destroyed. I don't believe in fate, but I believe in you. I believe in us. I believe in the life we're building together. So I'm asking you, on this train where it all began, in front of all these strangers who have no idea they're witnessing the most important moment of my life, Adrian Michael Mitchell, will you marry me? I looked up from the letter with tears streaming down my face. Ethan was kneeling in the narrow space between our seats, holding out a ring, a simple platinum band engraved with coordinates. Those are the coordinates of this train station, he explained, his own eyes wet. The place where I found you, where I found us. The entire train car had gone silent, watching. I didn't care. Yes, I said, my voice breaking. Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. The car erupted in applause as Ethan slid the ring onto my finger, and I pulled him up into a kiss. People were cheering, and someone popped a bottle of champagne they apparently had prepared, and the conductor made an announcement congratulating us. It was perfect and public, and exactly like Ethan grand gesture wrapped in genuine emotion. We spent the rest of the train ride accepting congratulations from strangers, many of whom wanted to hear our story. Ethan told it beautifully, his hand never leaving mine. We were married the following June in his parents' backyard, beneath an arch woven with wildflowers. It was a small ceremony, just family and close friends, but it was perfect. Marcus was my best man. Ethan's sister Claire was his. My parents came, and though my father was still processing, he hugged me before the ceremony and said, "I just want you to be happy, son." It was enough. When Ethan and I stood facing each other, exchanging vows we'd written ourselves, I saw our entire future stretched before us. The challenges we'd face, the joys we'd share, the life we'd build together. "I vow to be your partner in all things," I said, my voice steady despite my tears. "To celebrate your victories and support you through struggles. To laugh with you, cry with you, grow with you. To never stop learning who you are, even when I think I know everything. I vow to love you not despite your scars, but because they're part of what makes you uniquely, beautifully you. I vow to choose you every single day for the rest of my life." Ethan was crying openly now, not bothering to hide it. "I vow to be worthy of your love," he said. "To build you up when you're doubtful, to ground you when you're spinning, to be the safe place you can always come home to. I vow to never stop fighting for us, for this love that changed everything. I vow to wake up every morning grateful that a train zipper got stuck one December night. I vow to love you fiercely and completely until my last breath, and if there's anything after that, I'll love you there too." We exchanged rings, the bands we'd promised each other with at the creek, now carrying the weight of legal commitment. When the officiant pronounced us married, we kissed while everyone cheered. And I felt like every moment of my life had been leading to this. The reception was joyful chaos dancing and toasts and laughter. During our first dance, Ethan pulled me close and whispered, "Best decision I ever made, letting you help with that zipper." "Best decision I ever made, offering to help," I whispered back. We danced until the stars came out, surrounded by everyone who loved us, beginning our forever. That was 5 years ago now. Our life together isn't perfect, no one's is. Ethan still has hard days with his PTSD. I still struggle with anxiety and perfectionism. We still argue about the thermostat and whose turn it is to clean the cat's litter box. But we face it all together, with patience and humor and unwavering commitment. We bought a house 2 years ago in a quiet neighborhood, with a porch where we drink coffee every morning and a yard where we're attempting to garden with mixed results. Ethan now runs the entire veteran services program he started with. I left the corporate firm and started my own practice. Focusing on community-centered design, we travel when we can't, took our honeymoon in Italy. Spent an anniversary in Japan, regularly visit Millbrook for holidays. We've built a beautiful, ordinary life filled with extraordinary love. And sometimes on hard days when the world feels heavy, we go back to Union Station. We stand on that platform where everything began, holding hands, remembering. Remembering that sometimes the best things in life start with a simple act of kindness, that sometimes the person who changes everything is a stranger on a train, that sometimes love finds you exactly when you need it most. Even if you didn't know you were looking, tonight, as I write this, Ethan is asleep beside me, Lucky curled between us, both of them snoring softly. The ring on my finger catches the lamplight, and I'm overwhelmed with gratitude. For that stuck zipper, for the courage to offer help, for every conversation, every visit, every choice that led us here, for the man who taught me that being broken doesn't mean being less, that vulnerability is strength, that love is worth every risk. I lean over and kiss his temple softly. He stirs slightly, reaching for my hand even in sleep, and my heart swells with so much love I can barely contain it. This is what happiness looks like, I think. Not perfect or easy, or without challenges, but real and deep and worth fighting for every single day. This is what it means to build a life with someone brick by brick, moment by moment, choice by choice, and I wouldn't change a single second of it. Not the hard parts, not the scary parts, not even the lonely time before Ethan, because all of it led me here, to this moment, to this man, to this love that feels like coming home. To the last train that changed absolutely everything. EPIOLOG US 7 years after that first train ride. We're back at Union Station. But this time, we're not alone. Our 3-year-old daughter, Emma, adopted 2 years ago after a long and emotional journey, holding both our hands, bouncing with excitement about her first train ride. She has Ethan's curiosity and my tendency to overthink, and we're absolutely obsessed with her. "Daddy, Papa, train," she shouts, pointing. "Yes, baby. We're taking the train to see Grandma and Grandpa," Ethan says, scooping her up. She wraps her arms around his neck, and he kisses her cheek, and I pull out my phone to capture the moment as we board. Emma insists on the window seat, and Ethan and I sit across from her, just like we did all those years ago. "Can you believe it's been 7 years?" I ask softly. "Sometimes it feels like yesterday." "Sometimes it feels like forever," Ethan says, reaching for my hand. "Either way, best train ride of my life. Mine too." Emma chatters away, pointing at everything outside the window, her joy infectious. And as the train pulls away from the station, I look at my family, this beautiful, unexpected family I never knew I was missing in. I think about how one small act of kindness can ripple outward in ways you can't imagine, how helping a stranger can change your entire trajectory. How love can find you in the most unlikely places. How the greatest adventures often begin with a single step onto a train platform on a cold December night. I squeeze Ethan's hand, and he squeezes back. And Emma laughs at something only she can see, and I know with absolute certainty this is exactly where I'm meant to be. This is home. The eon dead. Did this story touch your heart? Do you believe in fate bringing people together? Comment below and tell me, have you ever had a chance encounter that changed your life? What happened? Like this video if you believe in love that defies the odds. Subscribe for more true LGBTQ love stories that will restore your faith in connection and fate. Want to know what happened on their honeymoon in Italy? Should I tell you about the challenges they faced during Emma's adoption? Or maybe you want to hear about the moment Ethan's unit brothers met Adrian for the first time. Drop a comment telling me which story you want next. Part 2 is coming soon if you want it. What happened on our Italian honeymoon, part 2 of our love story. The plane touched down in Rome at sunset. And I watched Ethan's face light up as he looked out the window at the eternal city sprawling below us. We'd been traveling for nearly 14 hours, Philadelphia to London. London to Rome, exhaustion clung to both of us like a second skin. But the moment we stepped into the warm Italian evening, breathing air that smelled of espresso and ancient stone, all the fatigue melted away. "We're really here," Ethan said, squeezing my hand as we navigated through the airport. "Our honeymoon. In Italy. This feels surreal." I pulled him close, kissing his temple. "Get used to surreal, husband. We have 2 whole weeks of it." The word still felt new on my tongue, husband. We'd been married for exactly 48 hours, and I kept finding excuses to use it. My husband. Ethan, my husband. "Have you met my husband?" Each time sent a thrill through me that I suspected would never fade. Our hotel was a small boutique place in Trastevere, tucked down a cobblestone alley lined with ivy-covered buildings. The owner, a woman named Lucia, with silver hair and knowing eyes, greeted us like long-lost family. "Ah, newlyweds," she exclaimed, looking between us with delight. "I can always tell. You have the glow," she winked conspiratorially. "I've prepared our best room for you. Top floor, terraced with views of the city. Perfect for romance." "Yes." Ethan and I exchanged amused glances. "Perfect," we agreed in unison. The room was everything Lucia promised: exposed wooden beams, crisp white linens, French doors opening onto a terrace where Rome spread before us in shades of terracotta and gold. We stood together on that terrace as the sun disappeared, the city lights beginning to twinkle like earthbound stars. I felt Ethan's arms wrap around me from behind. "Thank you," he murmured against my neck. "For what?" "For saying yes. For marrying me. For being here. For everything." I turned in his arms, cupping his face in my hands. "Ethan, you never have to thank me for choosing you. Choosing you is the easiest thing I've ever done." He kissed me then, slow and deep, tasting of airplane coffee and possibility. When we finally pulled apart, both of us were breathing hard. "We should shower," I said, though moving seemed impossible. The flight was long, and we're both— "Are you really thinking about showering right now?" Ethan asked, his eyes dark with want. "Because I'm thinking about completely different things involving that very nice bed over there." Heat flooded through me. "The bed does look nice." "It's very nice," he agreed, already pulling me backward toward it. "Very comfortable. We should probably test it thoroughly. Make sure it meets our standards." We made love that first night in Rome with the terrace doors open. Warm Italian air washing over our skin, the distant sounds of the city creating a symphony around us. Afterward, we lay tangled together, sweaty and satisfied and deliriously happy. "Best honeymoon ever," Ethan declared. "We've been here 3 hours. Doesn't matter." "Already the best," I laughed, pressing kisses to his shoulder. "Wait until you see what I have planned for tomorrow." "You made plans?" "Extensive plans." I may have created a spreadsheet. He pulled back to look at me, amused. "You made a honeymoon spreadsheet?" "Color-coded by activity type," I admitted, "with backup options for weather and energy levels, and a separate tab for restaurant reservations." Ethan's laugh was warm and full. "God, I love you. Only you would spreadsheet romance. Is it too much? We can be spontaneous if you want. I can delete the—" He silenced me with a kiss. "It's perfect. You're perfect. Show me this spreadsheet." So we spent the next hour in bed, still naked, going through my meticulously planned itinerary on my phone. Ethan contributed suggestions. We debated the merits of various museums, and eventually we fell asleep with the phone still glowing between us. Exhausted and content and ready for adventure, the next morning, we woke to church bells and sunlight streaming through the terrace doors. Ethan was already awake, sitting on the edge of the bed, doing the stretches his physical therapist had prescribed. I watched him quietly for a moment, the way he manipulated his prosthetic. Checking the fit, adjusting straps with practiced efficiency. He caught me watching and smiled. "Morning, husband. Morning. How's the leg?" "Good. A little swollen from the flight, but nothing serious. I'll be fine for walking." We'd planned carefully for this trip, making sure every activity was accessible. that we had backup plans if his residual limb needed rest. But Ethan hated when I fussed, so I just nodded. Let me know if you need breaks. Always do. We showered together, less sexual than practical, helping each other with the unfamiliar European fixtures, laughing when the water temperature fluctuated wildly. Then we dressed and headed down to breakfast, where Lucia had prepared a spread of pastries, fruit, cheese, and the strongest espresso I'd ever tasted. Today you go to the Colosseum, yes? Lucia asked, refilling our cups. Tomorrow, Vatican. This is good. Very romantic. Walking through history together. Any other recommendations? Ethan asked. She leaned in conspiratorially. Tonight, you skip the tourist restaurants? Go to Ristorante da Enzo. Small place, no reservations, you must wait. But the Cassio e Pepe, heaven. Tell them Lucia sent you. He thanked her and headed out into the Roman morning. Hands linked, ready to explore. The Colosseum was massive and humbling, and standing inside it, imagining the history that had unfolded in this space, made me feel impossibly small. Ethan was quiet, taking it all in with the same intensity he brought to everything. You okay? I asked. Yeah, just thinking about all the warriors who fought here. All the blood spilled for entertainment. His hand unconsciously went to his leg. Violence has always been a spectacle. I pulled him closer. You're not a spectacle. You're a survivor. There's a difference. He nodded, but I could see the shadow in his eyes, the one that appeared sometimes when he thought too much about what he'd experienced, what he'd lost. Come on, I said gently. Let's go see the Forum. I want to show you where Julius Caesar was assassinated, changing the subject. Redirecting your very brilliant but sometimes too intense brain to something less likely to spiral, I corrected. He smiled, the shadow receding. I love that you get that about me. Love everything about you. We spent hours wandering through ancient ruins, me reading aloud from guidebooks while Ethan photographed everything with the expensive camera he'd bought specifically for this trip. At the Trevi Fountain, we threw coins over our shoulders, making wishes we didn't share. In the Pantheon, we stood beneath the oculus, watching light pour through that impossible opening. And everywhere we went, we held hands, stole kisses, reveled in being young and in love and free in one of the most beautiful cities on earth. That evening, we followed Lucia's advice to Ristorante da Enzo. She was right, there was a line. No reservations accepted, and we waited 45 minutes for a table. But when we finally sat down in the tiny, crowded space and tasted the Cassio e Pepe, we understood. It was transcendent, simple pasta, cheese, and pepper, elevated to art. Oh my God, Ethan moaned, eyes closed in bliss. This is what heaven tastes like. I watched him savor each bite, memorizing this moment. My husband, illuminated by candlelight, happy and present and here. What? He asked, catching me staring. Nothing. Just loving you. You're such a sap. But he was grinning. Only for you. After dinner, we walked along the Tiber, the river, reflecting city lights like scattered diamonds. Street musicians played, lovers embraced on bridges, and Rome pulsed with life around us. Ethan stopped suddenly, pulling me into a shadowed alcove between buildings. Dance with me, he said. There's no music here. Sure there is. Listen. I did, and he was right from somewhere nearby. A violin played something slow and romantic. Ethan pulled me close, one hand at my waist, the other linked with mine, and we swayed together in the darkness. I never thought I'd have this, he said softly. What? Everything, you. Marriage, dancing in Rome, on my honeymoon. After the explosion in the hospital, I thought the best parts of life were over. I thought I'd never feel whole again. And now? I asked, my throat tight. Now I know that wholeness isn't about having all your pieces. It's about finding someone who sees your broken parts and loves you more because of them, not despite them. His voice cracked slightly. You make me feel complete, Adrian. Not fixed, I'll never be fixed, but complete. I kissed him then, pouring 7 years of love into it. Every promise we'd made, every dream we shared. When we pulled apart, we were both crying. Come on, I said, wiping his tears with my thumbs. Let's go back to the hotel. I want to make love to my husband and fall asleep listening to Rome outside our window. Best plan you've ever made, he agreed. And that's saying something, considering the spreadsheet. We laughed and headed back through winding streets, arms around each other, two men in love in a city built for it. That night, we made love slowly, thoroughly, learning each other's bodies again like it was the first time. And afterward, true to my word, we fell asleep to the sounds of Rome distant laughter, church bells. The eternal song of a city that had witnessed countless love stories and was now witnessing ours, to be continued. Are you hooked? Do you want to know what happened next? Comment part 2 full if you want to see the complete honeymoon story. Want to know what happened when they visited Venice and Ethan had a PTSD episode in public? The surprise Ethan planned for Adrian and Florence that made him cry. The couple they met in Cinque Terre who changed their perspective on everything. The secret Adrian was keeping about, wanting to adopt Dan, when he finally told Ethan. Smash that like button if this preview touched your heart. Subscribe so you don't miss part 2 dropping this week. Drop a comment telling me which part of their honeymoon you want to hear about most. Your support means everything. This is your love story community. Let's grow it together.